And then all of a sudden somebody's able to handle more because they've grown professionally in their role and they're more confident, and being able to delegate some tasks that normally you may be a little afraid to give up control on. You will be pleasantly surprised. And if a mistake happens, then use it as an opportunity to show somebody how to go about doing it.
You're listening to Home Care Hindsight, the podcast where we talk with home care leaders about the big mistakes they've made and the even bigger lessons they've learned along the way. I'm David Knack, head of sales here at Zengage, and I've built a career on the idea that we learn a whole lot more from our mistakes than from our successes, which is great because I've made a lot of mistakes. I've gotten to know some of the leaders in this industry who've built amazing businesses and are super well respected. So I thought it'd be fun, instead of asking them about the great things they've accomplished, to have them tell the story of one of the biggest mistakes that they've made and how that mistake changed their thinking and the way they run their business. All right, we are back with another episode of Home Care Hindsight. Today with me on the show, I have Ryan McEniff, the CEO of Minute Women, home care agency in Massachusetts. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I just lost all of my New England states. They're all just a big blob for me in the top right corner of my map. I live in Tennessee. We have big states here. We don't recognize little states. But thanks for being on the show today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be on, and thanks for inviting me on.
Well, for people who are not familiar with you, how would you introduce yourself?
I would introduce myself as the owner of a private home care company that focuses on specialized dementia care, and, really an educator in the community, and try to advocate for people to be proactive in the planning of their kind of older age and getting their things in order to relieve stress on their loved ones and family for if or when they need some type of assistance, whether it's through home care or in the medical world, whatever it is.
Well, I first came across you and the stuff that you're doing. You do a good, this is something I've wanted to do, but I just need to not be a big baby and actually do it. So you can tell me, don't be a big baby, actually do it. Which is, I like your walking in the woods, kind of taking the dog on a walk selfie videos. They're very like unscripted and organic feeling, and I just really like them.
Oh, thanks so much. It wasn't really a conscious decision. I felt like, when you go for your 15-minute walk with the dog, might as well be productive and throw the camera on and throw your thoughts out there. And so it's an easy way to make some content for LinkedIn.
Yep, I love it. Well, as you know, I get tired of small talk quickly, and all I want to do is ask, hey, what kind of person are you? But you can't do that normally, but you can on a podcast. And so my question for you to understand what kind of person are you is if you could use like the Men in Black neuralizer, the little flashy thing that erases your memory, to completely remove a movie or a book or a TV show or whatever from your brain so that you could rewatch it again for the first time, what would it be?
I thought about this for a while, and I guess I came to the question of the answer of House of Cards, any of the seasons after season 3. It just really went downhill. It felt like it went from a realistic, really interesting way of dramatizing how politics works at the highest level to being kind of jumping the shark, as they say, where these things the storylines got a little too outrageous and unbelievable to think that they would actually happen.
Got it. So as somebody who has no idea what House of Cards is or what it's like or anything, after season 3 is where it went to pieces, huh?
In my opinion, yeah. I mean, I think that I didn't do a whole lot of research on it, but I think the consensus, if you look at like Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb, was like watch the first couple seasons and then kind of watch out because this thing's going to go off a cliff pretty quickly. Kind of like Game of Thrones, the final season of Game of Thrones, everybody wants to forget because it was like, oh, we're just going to tie this off into a sloppy knot and call it a day kind of thing. Kind of one of those situations.
Yeah, I've got a complaint about just in general entertainment. And this is my curmudgeonly just man yelling at clouds problem, but we don't know how to end stories. Why is that? I don't know, but we just don't know how to do it. I used to play a good bit of music, and another thing I learned is that musicians don't know how to end songs. That's why in like the 80s, every song would just kind of fade out on a never ending chorus. And we got to figure out how to end stories better.
Oh, I think it's also that complaint that I have with House of Cards is probably a reason why you're seeing a lot of streaming shows only last, maximum 3 or 4 seasons because, the talent wants to get paid more, the writing's harder and harder to do, and it's hard to keep people engaged, and the expectations are so high. So leave on kind of the Seinfeld, leave on a high note, wanting them, having the audience want more, and then you'll be, a legend versus maybe that's the old Kurt Cobain. It's better to burn out than fade away kind of thing. Like, and jumping the shark with what the Fonzie did was like, all right, we've had enough. We're beating a dead horse here. Let's move on to some new creative ideas that may be hits or they may be misses, but it's over.
Yep. Well, I brought you here. Of course, I think people know you. You've built a pretty successful home care agency. You're very involved in your community. You're a great resource to the people around you. But we're not here to talk about any of that stuff. Instead, I bring people on the show to ask them about the biggest mistake they made in their business and what they learned from it. So, Ryan, what's your big mistake?
I think my big mistake was probably not investing more in myself and the business as a owner. It led me to where I'm at. So you can't really complain too much. But I think if I had to do it over again, the fear of failure should not outweigh the excitement of success. And when people are business owners, it can be very easy to look at the P&L and say, well, we don't have enough money for this and we don't have enough money for that. But, you know, the the old, speaking of movies and everything, Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. Nobody's coming to your business unless it's already invested in it and you have a good product and an improving product. And I think, for my personal growth as a CEO, it would have been better to spend more money and time in developing my skills. And then of course that then trickles down to developing more and more within the company as well, not afraid to hire somebody before you need them rather than when the house is on fire and trying to hire somebody after you needed them, and continuing to reinvest the money into the company is definitely something that, I wish I had done. And that goes into a lot of different things. I wish, to be more specific, I wish we were investing more time and energy into social media. Imagine how far we would have been if we did that 7 years ago rather than in the last year. All of those little things that I wish I had done more speaking engagements locally and gone to the senior centers more often and ramped that up because maybe I would be in a different place than where I'm at right now. So it's just like anything, human beings are, it's a lot, it's very hard, the weight loss issues, it's very hard to delay immediate gratification for a long-term reward. We have trouble with that as human beings, right? But if you're consistent with doing the same things over and over again really well and investing that time and energy and money into your company, it will very likely grow. And I have yet to find a situation that I haven't invested money into the company. There are, of course, a few, but more times than not, that investment pays dividends.
Yeah. So, what are the things that earlier on that you had investment opportunities with that you maybe overlooked that you look back on now and you're like, man, if we'd done this or that differently, what could it have meant for the business? And I'd be interested in like a system technology, like a spend on the business that's some money that would have been painful, but also like what's a professional development or a personal kind of growth investment that you could have made?
Yeah, I mean, the most recent one was we've invested in that I wish was years ago was EOS. We use the Entrepreneurial Operating System very heavily. We're drinking the Kool-Aid, so you can judge me as you will. But for myself, I'm a sales and marketing guy. I'm a schmoozer, right? And that is great because you're external. You can meet with people. You can chat. Probably part of the reason why I'm on this podcast. But the downside of that is, processes, procedures, detail orientation usually not our strong suit. And so, that kind of goes into wishing we had done much more with the process and procedures within Minute Women rather than kind of flying by the seat of our pants. And I would say the other big one that I thought about was the recruitment side. It took me far too long, and this may sound incredibly stupid, but it is what it is. Like, I didn't really value recruiting caregivers as much as I should have. I thought, hey, caregivers just show up and they call and then we'll hire them, instead of now where we're at, where it's, it's its own essentially marketing budget, right? We're marketing to finding the best caregivers that we can. And that probably took me way too long to figure out all's well that ends well kind of situation. And you can't go back and change history. But, when I talk to, when I'm at conferences and I talk to people that are starting up an agency, sometimes they'll ask any guidance. And I say, make sure the product's outstanding. Make sure that you're investing in finding caregivers, you're investing in sales and marketing, your operations. Go get the home care pulse or activated insight benchmarking study, read that quite a bit, investing, putting the processes and the foundations in place in your company so that when it scales, of course, you're going to have to go revisit them because, a $1 million agency is in the same process as a 3 million and same thing with 3 to 5, but you need to have building blocks there.
Yeah, totally. I want to go back to the EOS thing. Tell me about the process of adding that. Like, how long did it take to implement EOS? And what was the main reason that you guys went down that road?
So the main reason we went down that road is I wouldn't say I'm a voracious reader, but I've read enough self-help books to think that they're all kind of BS. A lot of them are. I won't say all of them. Typically, a 300-word book can be summarized in a page or two blog. And I had heard through working with the home care CEO group, a lot of them were using EOS, and I kind of wrote it off as just like flavor of the month kind of thing. And as I heard enough of that, I kind of started investigating it. I read traction. I listened to some of the podcasts and the videos online. And what I kind of liked about it was I liked that they were upfront and honest, saying that this isn't a quick get rich scheme, or this isn't like, I think they said essentially like nothing in this book is like a new idea. It's putting time and tested principles in place completely for your business to let it get traction, right? So the big book is called Traction. And I had gone through enough self-development on my own as a CEO to say, hey, listen, my deficiencies are, X, Y, and Z. Part of my big mistakes was thinking I needed to know the answers for everything. And I was trying to take myself as a square peg and push it into a round hole, which isn't going to work for anybody. And once I went through that and started reading about it, it made a lot of sense to me. And that's what kind of led me down that rabbit hole. And Debbie, my co-owner, and I looked at it. We thought it seemed interesting. We called up an implementer and were rather shocked at the price of what it would cost to implement EOS. But at the end of the day, we had to make the choice. Do we want to try to do this on our own and stumble and fail, or do you want to pay the money and just leapfrog everything? And that's probably another big mistake in general. Like the overarching mistake is pay the money, in my opinion, pay the money up front to get what you need because of this time savings and the revenue that you're losing out stumbling. And Ava's a perfect example of that. We are looking at using Ava, and essentially what and I'm not trying to doubt, but you could do Ava on your own. You could use spreadsheets and you could track it all, and you could do that if you want. But that takes a lot of time and that takes a lot of effort, and somebody's got to be dedicated to tracking that. And mistakes will be made, or you can just pay for the service and have it done and implemented rather quickly. And those are those business decisions that I think I wish I had made before in the past, where it's just pay the man their money and get to the promised land sooner rather than stumble and fall and make mistakes and learn on your own. And you're going to make plenty of mistakes anyway. So why let that be one of them?
Yeah, make more interesting mistakes, right? We don't need to make these level 1 mistakes. We can go straight to the 201 mistakes.
And I'm sure that sounds great when people, when you have cash flow positive and you have, a little bit of a war chest to do this. And I'm sure somebody's out there going, well, I don't have the revenue. And listen, then you're going to have to grind it out and you're going to have to do a little bit of it on your own. But just in the back of your mind, think, hey, listen, take some of those profits and put them into the fund of self-development and making your business better and doing all the things that will help you catapult into, a higher revenue scheme.
I think that's great. What is, like, if you had to pick one area in your business that having implemented EOS had made kind of the biggest night and day difference for you, what is that area?
Yeah, I mean, I think the accountability and the communication of having a scorecard. We use 90IO, the technology, to implement it. It's a cloud-based system that implements the EOS system for the team. I think that transparency and accountability has helped out quite a bit. It's opened up conversations with your team, And as an owner or an operator or manager, you need to react correctly when somebody has bad news for you. If somebody says, "Hey, this isn't going well," or "I'm unhappy for this," or "I'm concerned about that," or "Here's an issue that we have," you can't dismiss it. You can't blow up. You have to be ready to take those issues head on. And I think that really made the team feel very invested, like incredibly invested in the success of their individual departments and overall as men and women to get to the next level by having that. And they saw that we were investing in them as well, right? And saying, "Hey, listen, we want you to be part of the success, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to be far more transparent, and there's essentially nothing there's essentially nothing that my team can't find out one way or another."
Mm.
They can go into Wells Guide, they can see what the revenue is on a weekly basis, they can get an idea, a rough estimate of what we're probably making on a weekly or monthly basis. And listen, if you want to find that out, go for it. But I find that, that transparency overall is far more, it has so many more benefits than it does detractors to it.
Yeah. Well, that seems like talk to people who have done an EOS implementation, the idea of that level of transparency, that level of accountability, I think is something that's scary on the front end. But what I'm hearing you say is that not only has it been useful for you and for your co-owner at the management, executive level, but it's also been something that's your team has responded to really well too.
Yeah, I think so, right? And the understanding for most implementers with EOS or people that have gone through it is that you are probably going to have to make some really tough decisions, i.e., letting people go that maybe you've been kicking that can down the road or you didn't realize needed to be let go when implementing this, because there's something called the GWC, gets it, wants it, has the capacity to do it. And if you aren't a positive, it's binary. It's plus or minus. And I think there's a little so-so in there, but it's typically binary, plus or minus. And if you're not pluses along the way, doesn't mean you're going to get fired, but it also means that maybe this isn't the right role for you. So if David doesn't get podcasting, well, then this isn't the right role for David to be in charge of the podcasting arm of Ava, right? So maybe David's skills would be better used somewhere else. And so that doesn't mean somebody needs to get fired, but if somebody's negatives across the board, you're obviously going to have some difficult come to Jesus conversations, either internally with, is that person the right person for that seat? Or even on a greater scale, is that person the right person for the company and the culture and where you're trying to go and do that? I think one of the things is, you need everybody rowing in the right direction. And if one person isn't rowing with the team, then you're just going to go around in circles.
So have you made some personnel changes as a result of this project?
Yeah, we did. And it was extraordinarily difficult and it was really tough. But unfortunately, that's kind of the way it had to go.
Well, thanks for sharing. I want to transition to a segment next. And typically, I ask people about something that they think is either underrated in the industry or overrated in the industry. But you're actually going to give me one of each. And so, what do you think something that is overrated in the industry that people think of too highly and that you actually don't think it's all it's cracked up to be?
I think local networking at assisted living, and this isn't a dig at my assisted living partners, so don't call me up and say, "Well, how could you say that?" We found that most networking events at assisted livings the majority of people that show up are private home care agencies. We went to one recently and there were like 17 different companies there and 14 of them were private agencies. So
Mm.
a bunch of competitors are sitting around in the room just making small talk for an hour and a half. And there certainly is something to have relationships with your competitors, because you want to bounce ideas off of people. You want to know what's going on. Certainly it's great. But if you're, as a marketer, your initiative is to go to 3 or 4 networking events per month, I feel like that is a waste of time, because more often than not, it's just a bunch of private agencies kind of sitting around chatting. Now, does that mean you don't go to any networking events? Probably not. You got to go to some to keep your pulse out there and on what's going on. But it seems very overvalued to me.
Yeah. And then conversely, what's the thing that you think's underrated in the industry?
I mean, I think, what's underrated is out of the box ideas for marketing. There's so many different ways to get your name and your information out there. And one of the challenges I think everybody is facing in this industry is that there's a lot of turnover in assisted livings and nursing homes and case management departments. Those three big that are big referral partners for a lot of people in this industry, not just private home care agencies. So how do you go about doing things that isn't just knocking on a door and seeing if they have 5 or 10 minutes to talk? I mean, those days are long gone. You needed to be developing true relationships with these folks. And how do you get your name and your information out there repetitively so that they see it, right? And that's part of why I do those walk and talks, connect with everybody on LinkedIn and do a little walk and talk. And, one of the things I looked at myself was I didn't think we were beating our chest a little bit. We weren't doing it enough. We weren't saying, hey, we're great, use us. It was more implied.
Yeah.
And so now I was like, I looked at some of those and I said, well, I'm going to start every video moving forward after the ones I've already recorded saying, it's Ryan from Men and Women, the dementia care specialist. Use us if you know anybody that has dementia. Here's my thoughts on the day. And while that might not be revolutionary, that isn't a bad idea. Another one that I'll give you that I'm kicking around is that, we all have our ideal printers, right? So people that print up our marketing collateral. Well, a lot of those printers are going after branded clothing, right? So like I got the PGA here. So it would be, but the branded clothing is for the towns, right? So like the Winchester horses or whatever they. Well, who are the people that are probably buying the Winchester horses t-shirts for the family? Probably the moms. Who are the people that home care companies want to get in front of? Women between 40 and 50 and 60 years old that have kids in school that can no longer care for their parents because they have a career and their kids and everything like that. So I was like talking to my printer, like, hey, listen, maybe if you are selling to these target areas for these branded high school stuff, could we make a deal where you throw a little rec card in there of my stuff and all of this, or a magnet or something that says Men and Women Home Care Dementia Care Specialists in case you ever need us with a little card or something. And that's an out of the box idea to get into some of these folks' hands, your marketing material that may have an issue, but may not be at that point where they need private home care and they keep that information in the cupboard until obviously that trigger happens where they say, I need this.
Yeah. I like that. So you're targeting people who are not in your industry even a little bit, but are selling to your decision maker in the home care buying process.
Yeah. I mean, why couldn't you develop a relationship, either your referral partners or even, ancillary businesses that are going after similar contacts that you say, hey, listen, I'll put your logo on all my distribution emails. You put your logo on all and my logo on all yours, and we'll get the name out there more. I think the case manager is still going to be the creme de la creme referral that we need, right? But there are still out of the box ways to get in front of decision makers that otherwise you might not be able to get into. And that's kind of my, I got those big post-it notes, those huge ones that go on the wall. And that's where I'm like, well, what about this idea? What about that idea? What's a good idea? What's not? And then my team comes in, and going back to, you have to trust your team to give you bad criticism. They're allowed to say, that's a good idea. All of these other ones are absolutely terrible, Ryan. Get rid of them, but focus on that guy right there. And then you go, all right, well, I'll bet I'm happy to bet, 100 points in the batting average rather than, I don't need to be 900. I'll just be 100, one good idea every once in a while, and let's run with it.
Yep, exactly right. Batting 300 gets you in the Hall of Fame, right?
Exactly.
Well, we talked about a big mistake that you made. I want to hear about a little mistake that you see home care owners making all the time, that if they quit, it'd make their lives or their businesses like 10 times better.
I mean, it's asked for the business. I mean, that's probably in every sales book or trainer that you have. I think a lot of people spend an enormous amount of energy getting to the point where they get to sit in a decision maker's office or a family member's living room, and then they don't ever say, so are we ready to go? Like, are you ready to make the next step and work with us, or to a referral source? Do you have 3 people in mind that you could refer to me, knowing that maybe it's only one, but all I need is one to show. And I think, that's a mistake I probably made. And I kind of talked about beating my own chest a little bit. And that kind of came from, there have been a number of instances in my my lifetime where I was ready to make the decision to move forward, but somebody didn't ask me for the business and I was kind of on the fence. And if they had called up and said, "Hey, Ryan, I know this is going to work for you. Trust me. And we're going to crush it if you take this leap of faith," then I probably would have gotten out of my credit card and said, "All right, if you say so and you believe in this so much." So I think asking for that business and being confident in it is very difficult. I'm not trying to make it sound easy, but ask for the business.
Yeah. This is a complete sales tangent that may not be interesting to anybody else other than me, but here goes. There's this great book I sell. I'm in the software sales world. It's this whole kind of ecosystem of here's how you do sales, and there's like a bunch of different people who are thought leaders and influencers and whatever in this space. One book that I think everyone should read about sales is called The Jolt Effect. I don't know if that's a familiar one to you, Ryan, but it's by the same people who wrote this book called The Challenger Sale that was also really impactful. Yeah, so Challenger Sale, right? The same kinds of reps are successful in any economic condition, and those are the people who do the most to educate their buyers and be very consultative. And it's like basically like a consulting call, but of course, a sales call. The Jolt Effect talks about when people get to the end stages of the buying process, they often do not move forward. Most opportunities end not in the competitor getting the business, but in no decision. So the entire book is about how do you control the flow of information? How do you simplify the decision-making process? And how do you mitigate downside risk so that people who are really nervous about pulling the trigger, but know that the status quo is totally untenable, how do we get them to get out of no decision analysis paralysis and move forward confidently with your services? And I think one of those things that makes a big difference is showing them that you're confident enough that you can solve the problem to say, hey, I think we're probably at a point where we can move forward together. What do you think about that? And having them have to make a decision, yes or no, ending in maybe is the absolute worst.
Yeah, and I read that Challenger book. I think one of the examples they gave was with car dealers, where everybody knows the information on the cars now. So it's not like you consult with them rather than, thinking that the customer may know more about the car than you do because they've been doing so much research on the Dodge Challenger, and you need to know about 50 different cars. So they know everything about that one car. And I think I agree with you more. I mean, and I'm not saying we're savants in this. We have our own failures as well, but it's all about them is a phrase that I like. And when you look at through the eyes of the decision maker in our industry is usually the adult daughter, but it's an adult child. And if you think about the fact that their head knows they need private home care or they need something, right? But their heart is being pulled on because mom and dad are saying, "No, I'm perfectly fine." Imagine that tug of war. I'm fine. And their heart is saying, well, maybe that bump on the head really did come from just a stupid, like, knocking your head on the open cupboard that you didn't realize, you know, maybe it was just something, stupid that happened that wasn't indicative of a bigger problem. But their brain knows, like, yeah, this is it. And you have to sit there and work with a family and convince them that the decision that they're making is the right one because it is the right one. Not you don't convince them because they're wrong. You have to make them feel you're doing the right thing here, Mary. This is what we've seen this a billion times. You are not alone in this situation, even though you feel like you're alone, because nobody talks about this at all. And then you have to get them to feel confident. And maybe it's horrible because when maybe happens, that's when indecision happens, that's when you call up a week later or 2 weeks later and find out that, mom fell down the stairs or some tragedy happened and they're kicking themselves that they didn't move forward with you.
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting about purchasing decisions in home care is it's everybody's first rodeo just about every time. And so it's not like, oh yeah, I know how to, enter into a home care buying relationship. I've never done it before. And I need a trusted partner who can help me understand that, like, this, even though this feels like I'm failing my responsibilities as a child by outsourcing care, in reality, this is the best way to make sure that my loved one gets the compassionate care that they need. That's going to be able to not totally burn me out and help me still be a daughter or a son or whatever, instead of having to be a full-time caregiver.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as the weight loss industry. You can do it yourself. I mean, it's not like revolutionary. You just need to track your calories. You gotta go on a walk a few times every single day, and you gotta stop eating. You gotta put the fork down. But what we do as a company and as we're a service-based industry is you can have the information for free. We'll give you the playbook. We have them all printed up. We'll hand them to you. And if you want to do it on your own, more power to you. Here's what we do. The execution is what we pay for, right? And more times than not, the execution is far more daunting than people realize. And going back to the example of Ava, like you can do it if you want, or you can pay somebody to do the execution for you and you make your life that much easier so you can take on other more important roles that you, or you can spend your time doing a spreadsheet with and recreating what Ava's doing. So and I think we have to be honest about that and say, hey, you can do this yourself, but there's going to be a sacrifice. You're paying something. Whether you're paying money, whether you're paying time, whether you're paying your sanity with stress and all of these things. You're going to be giving something up to do this, and you have to choose what that is.
Yeah. I remember I was at a conference and I was talking to a scheduler who was responsible for correcting all the inaccurate care logs from the previous week. And so every Monday she'd come in and she'd spend the first 4 hours of her day fixing documentation issues and was stressed, was burnout. That's the worst part of your job. And you have to do it every Monday morning for the first 4 hours of your work week. Like that does not set the tone well. And so I asked, because she had her administrator there and was like, please tell my administrator that we need Ava. And so I asked her, like, well, just, I mean, out of curiosity, like, what would you do if you weren't doing that? And she'd like, I'd recruit, I'd talk to our caregivers. And so I think the question is always, yeah, you can do this on your own. Here's the playbook. It's not rocket science, but the execution is what we pay for. And so what would you do if you knew that this lower level stuff, this more mundane stuff was being executed consistently? And it opens up a huge number of possibilities. And so, what I'm hearing you say is like, what would your clients do? What would your clients' families do if they weren't responsible for day to day, super time consuming, burning you out kind of execution?
Yeah, there was a guy. There's a guy named Naval, and he's the one that created Angel List. So he's all in that VC world, and he said something that obviously ruffled feathers because there's some downsides to this. He's like, I make a crap load of money if I buy something off of Amazon, like some clothes that aren't overly expensive, and they don't fit right, or I don't like the look of them. Like I donate them. I take them off, and the next they go and I donate them immediately because it's not worth my time when you divide what I make an hour, it's not worth my time to package it back up, go on Amazon, print out the receipt, go to a Kohl's, wait in line, drop it off, and then move on with my day. I'll just put it in a bag and drop it off. And people were ruffled with the feathers, like, oh, well, that's so wasteful, or blah, 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 blah. But that wasn't his point. His point was you need to know what your time is worth. And then when you have a small task to do, you have to decide whether that's worth your time based off of what you could be, what the opportunity loss is, the opportunity cost is for doing that. And that's essentially what you're saying. Like, and one of the bigger things in home care is that it's you go from being a caregiver to going back to being a daughter. And listen, this isn't a magic wand. There's still going to be stress. There's going to be difficult days, and it's not perfect by any means, but is you can get 70% of your time back to just being a daughter and hanging out with your loved ones and having that stress taken away and kind of water on your back mentality, that's a huge win. And I think that's what a lot of people in hindsight realize is what happened when they allowed somebody to come in and start doing a lot of the heavy lifting on things. And then, you can still do the grocery shopping and make a meal with your mom or dad and sit down and have dinner and help out here and there and whatever it is, but that the big stuff is going to be taken care of.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. Well, as we come to the end here, the next segment we're going to go to is one that I call Win of the Week. We've talked about a lot of mistakes that people make, but I want to hear about something that has happened lately in your business you're really proud of.
Well, I talked about EOS, I think, on this question where it was like, I think that wasn't in the last week, but it's definitely been in the last, I would say, a year and a half that we've been doing EOS. That's felt like, as I've said before, a big game changer. And it's really allowed our business to grow and the culture of the business to thrive and people to feel really good about coming to Men and Women every single day. We're in a business that's stressful. Essentially what I like to say is we're building a giant puzzle, and then right as you think you have it done, something comes along and knocks the puzzle off the table, and then you get to rebuild it again. And, you know, that's hard enough as it is. Your example of a scheduler coming in and doing something they hate doing 4 hours every single morning, and how do we make that a little bit less stressful, or a lot less stressful? And I think EOS system has really helped us out with that, or it's helped me out with that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, before we transition to our last segment, which is home care hot take, what do you want to plug, or where can people find you?
I mean, people can find us on social media. Everything is at Minute Women Home Care. We do a podcast called the Caregivers Toolbox. It's a labor of love to try to get education out to people that are looking for it. And then if you want to see me walking in the woods with my dog, just shoot me a message on LinkedIn, Ryan McEniff, and I'll connect with you, and you can hear my rantings of a possible lunatic walking in the woods with his dog.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, moving to our last segment here called Home Care Hot Take, I've got a couple of questions for you and want to give you the opportunity to tell people what you think and get up in your soapbox or whatever the case may be. So, the thing that every home care owner should know about emerging technologies is
Adapt or die. They're coming. The wave is going to be here very shortly. I mean, I'm part of a technology company that's involved in that, and seeing behind the curtain what large companies have in store for these types of technologies to not necessarily replace all caregivers, but to be able to help with monitoring loved ones in the home is going to be here to stay and will be adopted. And I think home care companies should welcome that, and that transparency, and that ability to provide an extra level of service to their customers.
one thing people get wrong about referral sources is
They don't hate you. They're just really busy, and they got a billion people asking them for 15 minutes of the day, and it's not personal, even though it feels that. And I've been there where you come home and you pour yourself a double scotch or something because you've had such a bad day. It's not personal. It's just a roadblock, and it's your job to be creative and figure out a way to stand out.
the best thing you can do to grow your business this quarter is
That's a good question. I think the best way to grow your business this quarter is to start doing those in-person public speaking events and getting your name out there, and grow that, and invest in that time of being out there and educating the community and having your collateral available if they want to learn more.
I love public speaking as an opportunity because it's something most people won't do because they're have a phobia about it. And so if you can get over the hump there and get up in front of people, maybe learn to like it a little bit, it's a competitive advantage. One overlooked part of a typical home care business is
I think the culture. I was that guy for a long time too. Like, I thought culture was just a buzzword and words on a about us page. And if you take the time to really think about who you want to be and what you want to do, and the type of people and personality traits that you want in your office, that's going to make your life a hell of a lot easier, because it's the old saying of it's sometimes easier to know what you don't want than knowing exactly what you do want. And if you cross all that stuff off the list and you say, hey, these are the type of people we want to work with, that allows you to go from a massive list to a smaller list. And then you can pick from those traits or those characteristics and find out what kind of company you want to be and the people you want to work with.
that's great. And then last one, the thing that makes you sound like a broken record that you say all the time.
Delegate and elevate. That's another EOS thing. And I say it as a joke whenever I don't want to do anything that I don't like doing. I'll delegate and elevate it, elevate. But I was just out in Santa Barbara, and I did a shout out to Jason at his home care company out there. And one of the things he said is, he goes, I firmly believe that everybody in my office could do 20% more. And it's not that I think they're at 200% max and I want to get them to 220. I think people want to do more. And if you give them that opportunity to do a little bit more every single year and say, hey, take on a little bit more, it's the growth. And then all of a sudden somebody's able to handle more because they've grown professionally in their role and they're more confident, and being able to delegate some tasks that normally you may be a little afraid to give up control on, you will be pleasantly surprised. And if a mistake happens, then use it as an opportunity to show somebody how to go about doing it. And then hopefully that mistake doesn't happen again.
That's great. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for making some time to come on the show this week. Really enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks so much, David.
On behalf of the team here at Zengage, thanks for listening to the show. We'll be back next week with another episode, so be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. Leave us a rating while you're there. It helps other people find the show. If you have comments on the show, drop me a line, david@zengage.com. Would love to hear from you, chat with you there.